Good morning, children. Today we are going to discuss about transport of carbon dioxide. So, what we are going to discuss? The transport of the carbon dioxide. So, last class we discussed about the oxygen transportation. Oxygen 3% only will dissolve state through plasma. It will be moved. 97% will move on through the hemoglobin. Like that we discussed, right? So today we are going to discuss about how the carbon dioxide will transfer into the tissues to lungs, from tissue cells to the lungs. So that one we will be discuss. That is all our topic. Transport of the carbon dioxide. Transportation of carbon dioxide. Okay, children, observe very carefully. Blood transports carbon dioxide from the tissues cells to lungs in three ways. Blood transports carbon dioxide from the tissues cells to the lungs. Tissue cells to the lungs in three ways. What are the three ways? Number one, dissolved in plasma. Through the plasma, the blood will be, carbon dioxide will be transferred. So, about how much? Very important need bit. 7 to 10%. 7 to 10% of carbon dioxide is transported in a dissolved state from in the plasma 7 to 10%. So plasma, you know very well, plasma is a liquid part of the blood. Through the plasma, dissolved state in the plasma, about 7 to 10% of carbon dioxide is transported in a dissolved in the dissolved form. Okay, dissolved form in the what you called in the plasma, dissolved form. Okay, dissolved form in the plasma. Next, second one is bound to the hemoglobin. Second one is hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a oxygen and carbon dioxide carrying pigment. It's a very important pigment, hemoglobin. The hemoglobin, nearly 20 to 25% dissolved carbon dioxide is bound. 20 to 25% dissolved carbon dioxide bound and carried in the RBC. So carried in the RBCs. 20 to 25%. This is need bit. How much percentages? Next, as a carbaminohemoglobin. So 20 to 25% dissolved carbon dioxide is bound and carried in the RBC as a carbamin, or carbaminohemoglobin, HbCO2. What is called HbCO2, carbaminohemoglobin. This is important. Carbon dioxide plus HbCO2. Carbon dioxide plus hemoglobin comes to the HbCO2. This is important. Next, as bicarbonate ions in plasma. The third one is, so this is the most important what I called major carbon dioxide transportation. Bicarbonate ions. What is that? Bicarbonate ions. So bicarbonate ions, this is only major. Okay, 70% need bit. 70% of is transport as bicarbonate ions. So how this 70% will be transported in the sense that is influenced by partial pressure of carbon dioxide, degree of hemoglobin oxygenation. Okay, this is important. Degree of hemoglobin oxygenation. So this is influenced by partial pressure of carbon dioxide, degree of hemoglobin oxygenation. Next, these are very important things. Next, RBC contains high concentration of enzyme. The RBCs contains high concentration of enzyme. That is the most important enzyme. What is that enzyme name is? Carbonic anhydrase. Carbonic anhydrase is the very good enzyme and a very important enzyme that is present in the RBCs, and carbonic anhydrase is present very small amount. Carbonic anhydrase, Ca means what? Carbonic anhydrase, very small amount present in the plasma. So carbonic anhydrase enzyme more present in the RBCs, and carbonic anhydrase present in the plasma is very less. Next, tissues. Okay, this one is important. So in the tissues, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high due to catabolism. In the tissues, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high due to catabolism and diffuse into the blood from hydrocarbonate ions to, okay, diffuse blood into the blood from which one? HCO3 and H plus ions. HCO3 and H plus ions. The tissues, partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high due to catabolism and diffuse into the blood from HCO3 minus and H plus ions. When CO2 diffuse it into the RBCs, this is important. When the CO2 is diffuse into the RBC, what will happen? It combines with water forming carbonic acid, H2CO3. So HCO3 H plus. When CO2 diffuse into the RBCs, it combines with water forming carbonic acid, catalyzed by again carbonic anhydrase. Carbonic acid is unstable and dissociates into hydrogen and bicarbonate ion. See, CO2 plus H2O, H2CO3. Then immediately what will happen? H plus HCO3. Same by the help of which one? The carbonic anhydrase. Carbonic anhydrase. So carbonate ions will be very important. Diffuse into the blood from HCO3, H plus ions. Okay, CO2 is high, diffuse into the blood from HCO3 and from HCO3 and H plus ions. When CO2 diffuse into the RBCs, it combines with water forming what is called H2CO3. Okay, same, this will be unstable. So again what will happen? CO2, H2, carbonic acid is unstable, carbonic acid. So it will be separate. HCO3 is more quickly, okay, HCO3 is more quickly, this is a point you should have to remember. So the HCO3 very quickly will enter into the from the RBCs into the plasma. So HCO3 into the plasma to lungs. It will be go like that. So that is the point you should have to remember. First H2CO3 will come out, HCO3 minus and H plus, then it will be transferred to the plasma to lungs. In alveoli, what will happen? PCO2 is low, the reaction is reversed, leading to the formation of CO2 and water. The CO2 trapped in as HCO3 at the tissue level, it is transported to alveoli and released which one? CO2. Every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood delivers the 4 ml of carbon dioxide. That is a point you should have to remember. Every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood transports how much? 4 ml of carbon dioxide to the alveoli for the elimination. This is another important. Next, regulation of respiration. Next concept is regulation of the respiration. So here you see very carefully. Medulla oblongata, you know, brain. Our brain region, okay, very important this point. A specialized respiratory center, present in the medulla oblongata, okay, of the hindbrain called. Hindbrain is there or not? For the hindbrain, medulla oblongata, RB, respiratory rhythm center. What is the RRC? Respiratory rhythm center. A specialized, what is called center, respiration center, regulation of respiration. Next, in the pons varolii region. So this is another important. Okay. Next, in responsible for the regulation. Next, in the pons viruli, the pneumotoxic center. Pneumotoxic center. It is present in the pons viruli region of the brain. Moderates the function of the respiratory rhythm center. So pneumotoxic center moderates the function of respiratory rhythm center to ensure normal breathing. So pneumotoxic center, respiratory rhythm center. Pneumotoxic center, respiratory rhythm center. These two centers which are very useful to moderate functions of ensures the normal breathing. Next, this chemosensitive area, very important. Pneumotoxic center is there, no? So the chemosensitive area found close to rhythm center is very close to respiratory rhythm center. One area is there, chemosensitive area, that is connected to very near to respiratory rhythm centers. That is chemosensitive area, highly sensitive to carbon dioxide, hydrogen. So hydrogen is eliminated out by respiratory process, very important. So if anything wrong, so what will happen? Receptors are associated with the aortic arc. So if carbon dioxide level is more, then what will happen? Receptors are there or not? They are associated with the aortic arc and carotid artery, send signals to respiratory rhythm center for remedial action, means stops the inhalation, increases the inhalation. So receptors, this is a very important, aortic arc and carotid artery. These two are the need bits. Aortic arc and carotid artery receptors send signals to respiratory rhythm center for remedial action if carbon dioxide more. So that point you should have to remember. Next, the role of oxygen is insignificant in the regulation of respiratory rhythm center. The role of oxygen is insignificant, not that much significant in the regulation of respiratory rhythm center. Like this, there will be transportation of carbon dioxide is there. So once again children, listen very carefully. What we are discussing is transportation of carbon dioxide. Blood transports the carbon dioxide from the tissue cells to the lungs in 3 ways. What are the 3 ways? First one, dissolved in plasma. About 7 to 10% of carbon dioxide is transported in a dissolved form in the plasma. Dissolved in the plasma. So how much? 7 to 10% of carbon dioxide is transported in a dissolved form in the plasma. First one. Bound to hemoglobin. 20 to 25% of carbon dioxide, dissolved carbon dioxide bound and carried in the RBCs as a carbaminohemoglobin as HbCO2. Next, as a bicarbonate ion, see CO2, HbCO2. As a bicarbonate ions, plasma, see you know very well, in plasma 70% of carbon dioxide is transported as bicarbonate ions. This bicarbonate ion formation is influenced by pressure of carbon dioxide, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, degree of hemoglobin and oxygenation. Degree of hemoglobin and oxygenation. These points also you should have to remember. Oxygenation, degree of hemoglobin, oxygenation influenced by partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Next, RBCs consist of one enzyme. It's the most important enzyme. That enzyme is carbonic anhydrase. Carbonic anhydrase is a small amount present in the plasma also, but RBCs consist of more amount of carbonic anhydrase. This enzyme plays a major role for the formation of what we call carbonic acid and formation of HCO3 plus H plus. See now, the tissue's PCO2 is high due to catabolism diffused into the blood from HCO3 H plus ions. When CO2 diffuses into the RBCs, it combines with water, forming. Okay, CO2 combined with water. Water is forming what? H2CO3. So, forming what is called HCO2 diffused into the RBCs, it combines with the water forming H2CO3. Again by the carbonic anhydrase. And this carbonic acid is unstable, dissociate hydrogen. Again it will be separated into hydrogen plus HCO3. So HCO3 moves quickly from RBCs to plasma, plasma to lungs. So alveoli PCO2 is low reaction, in the alveoli partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low. The reaction is reversed, leading to the formation of CO2 and water. Thus CO2 trapped as hydrocarbon, what is called HCO3 minus. At the tissue level, it is transported to the alveoli and released out as carbon dioxide. Every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood delivers 4 ml. So the CO2 trapped as HCO3 at the tissue level, it is transported to alveoli and released out as carbon dioxide. Every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood delivers 4 ml. Next, regulation of respiration. So medulla oblongata is a respiratory rhythm centers. Medulla oblongata consists of one very important what is called a specialized respiratory center present in the medulla oblongata, respiratory rhythm center, and also respiratory rhythm center is responsible for the regulation of respiration. And pons varoli, one important structure is there, that is called pons varoli. Nothing consists of pneumotoxic center. Pneumotoxic center. So respiratory rhythm center, pneumotoxic center moderates the function of respiratory rhythm centers to ensure normal breathing. So pneumotoxic center moderates the function of respiratory rhythm centers to ensure normal breathing. And chemosensitive area will be there near the respiratory rhythm center. One more area is there, that is called chemosensitive area will be present near the respiratory rhythm center. It is highly sensitive to carbon dioxide, hydrogen. So these hydrogen plus protons eliminated out by the hydrogen plus atoms eliminate out by the respiratory process. So this is a very important. The receptors, what is called aortic arc and carotid artery, send signals to respiratory rhythm center. Suppose any disturbance is there, aortic arc, this name you have to remember, aortic arc. Again I am repeating, aortic arc and carotid artery. These two will send the signals to the what is called chemosensitive area. Then chemosensitive area to the information signals to respiratory rhythm centers for remedial action. The role of oxygen is insignificant in the regulation of respiratory rhythm center. So the role of oxygen role is insignificant. But here to remember the most important thing is carbon dioxide only. So receptor aortic or carotid artery send signals to the respiratory rhythm centers for remedial action. So if anything wrong, okay, anything wrong, what will happen? There will be problems will be takes place. Receptors associated with aortic arc. So which one receptors associated with the aortic arc and carotid artery? Send signals to which one? Respiratory rhythm center for remedial action. What respiratory rhythm center will do? If carbon dioxide is more, controls the inhalation, increases the exhalation. Then more carbon dioxide will be released. Then like that will be takes place. So these all the things will be there in the what is called respiration regulation systems. What are the important need bits? Means here 7 to 10% of carbon dioxide through plasma. First need bit. Second need bit 20 to 25% in the form of carbaminohemoglobin. Second need bit 70% of carbon dioxide transported by bicarbonate ions. Third need bit carbonic anhydrous, only because of that only carbon dioxide is transportation is going on in the form of bicarbonates. Next, the carbonic anhydrous forms the carbonic acids and even separates the what we called splits the carbonic acid into HCO3 minus H plus. Next, every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood, every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood delivers 4 ml of carbon dioxide. So medulla oblongata consists of respiratory rhythm centers, pons varoli consists of pneumotoxic centers. These are very helpful. And chemosensitive area is there. Chemosensitive area, it regulates the or which gives the very near to the respiratory rhythm centers. If carbon dioxide is more, that signals to respiratory rhythm centers through receptors of aortic arc and carotid arc. So the respiratory rhythm centers will take the remedial actions. So the role of oxygen, what is it? The role of oxygen is insignificant in the regulation of respiratory rhythm process respiration rhythm center.